Fellow of the Academy of Science Malaysia. Currently, he is also the Scientific Advisory Board member of ALKEN for Genetics and Genomics. He has more than 50 years of experience in the field of genetics, molecular biology, and biotechnology. And what's more, he is the very first scientist to provide DNA typing service for human identification and parentage testing in Malaysia. So, ladies and gentlemen, get ready with your hand clap reaction button. All right, let's give a round of virtual applause to our expert today, Dr. Koh Chong Lek. Welcome, Dr. Koh. Yeah, your hand clap. Where's your hand clap? All right, Dr. Koh.
Thank you, Shilin.
You're welcome. How are you doing today, Doctor?
It's okay. Waiting for the session to start. Yeah.
Great, great. All right. So if you are ready, Doctor, maybe I can, just give out the first question. Are you ready?
If I'm not ready, I will say.
Okay, all right. Okay. So let's see what is our first question today. Let me just share my screen. Okay. So the first question. How different is TrueU compared with other DNA profiling service provider in the market? So what is your take on that, Dr. Koh?
Okay, right. Thank you for your question. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dr. Koh. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, it's very clear.
Okay, good. Yes, there are other DNA testing providers in the market. However, TrueU DNA testing is very special. You may say I'm biased, but I say it's very special because of the following three reasons. Okay, three reasons. Now, first, TrueU DNA testing uses the advanced DNA microarray chip technology. The chip was specially designed by carefully selecting 1,000 gene variants present in some of our important genes for micro and macro nutrient metabolism, physical fitness, and health risk. Now, during the selection process, our experts studied more than 2,000 scientific research papers. Each selected gene variant was supported by at least 5 authoritative scientific research papers. Okay, so the markers are very carefully selected. That's the first reason. Now, second reason, TrueU DNA testing is conducted locally in Malaysia by highly specialized or experienced scientists at GE or Gene Express Laboratory, which was awarded the ISO 17025 accreditation by the Department of Standards Malaysia. So this is a very important and very significant achievement. This accreditation assures that the management system, the DNA testing process, and the determination of variant gene profiles meet all requirements for standardization and quality assurance. So the scope of DNA testing process under the awarded ISO 17025-2017 accreditation includes saliva DNA extraction. It covers from saliva DNA extraction to the determination and identification of gene variant profiles by using this sophisticated system known as Illumina Infinium HTS system. The gene variant profile results determined by GE Laboratory, they are accurate and of world-class standard That is the assurance from the ISO. And I'm very honored and very proud to say that we are probably the only one in Malaysia that has this ISO that cover this particular aspect of the technology. And we have all the instruments in our laboratory. Now, third, after determining the gene variant profile, this is very important. The gene variant profile of our customer, every customer must be determined accurately. Once you determine it accurately, we submit the profile to our experienced partner company in the United Kingdom, in England, for professional analysis and interpretation. After that, the client, you as the client, will be authorized to access a personalized genetic action plan via an interactive mobile app. In other words, you will receive a message on your mobile app that you can open this particular plan called the genetic action plan, personalized only for you. The plan contains information tailored for your individual needs at your fingertips. You can just check them. The information is easy to understand. It provides personalized healthcare and lifestyle guidance and recommends appropriate dietary supplements. So you see, you have three very important advantages using the TrueU DNA testing. Okay?
Okay, so Dr. Koh, maybe just summarize. So there are 3 points that you mentioned. The first one is because TrueU DNA test, we use a very advanced DNA microarray chip technology. This is the first one.
Yes.
And all the result, all the testing, we are based on 2,000 over, reliable scientific research paper.
Yeah, more than 2,000 easily.
More than 2,000, yes. And then the second point is we need to look at, the accreditation of the ISO 17025. And this is, as you say, it's not very common. Actually, we are one of the few that actually have this accreditation to provide this certification from the end-to-end process. Actually, it's not just part of the process in the lab. As many other labs, maybe they only have certain small parts that are actually ISO certified, right? So
Yeah.
This is the second point. And then the third point is we have a very experienced partner in the UK. All the scientists, all the experts there, they are the one who will do the final analysis and interpretation. So the final report that we get. Also, I personally think this is a very important because aside from getting the result, we need to know what we need to do. So they also provide a very precise and very personalized genetic action plan. So it makes the overall report a very useful one. It's something that we can take action upon, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. So let's look at the second question. Okay, let me share my screen. So the second question is, Dr. Koh, is saliva collection a better method to test our DNA if compared to a buccal swab? And how is it true?
Yes, in our approach, saliva collection is the better method. Okay, it's a better method than the buccal swab. Saliva collection is by a direct, easy, and painless method, which is not invasive. You don't need to use needle to get your blood. If you want to get blood, then you have to poke into your blood and then your vessel. This one is a non-invasive method because only from your mouth, and will not harm the human body. And furthermore, it can regularly be done at home. Everyone can do it at home. We'll give you proper instruction. You can do it at home. You don't have to go to a clinic or go to a hospital to see any specialist to collect your cells. So it's very convenient and painless. Saliva in our mouth contains not just liquid, but the liquid contains, if you look under the microscope, you see cells. These are cells from the, we call them the epithelial cheek cells because our cheek, and they're also called buccal cells, and white blood cells as well. The epithelial cells are shed from the inner cheek surface. This is the inner cheek surface. the cells will come out. Right? It happens all the time. And when you collect your saliva, before you spit your saliva into the tube, we recommend that you should scrape, use your tongue to scrape like this, to scrape the inner cheek surface using your tongue, just to scoop, to drag down more cells into your saliva while collecting your saliva. And this will ensure that the saliva collected in the tube has a lot of epithelial cells. Okay? So we want more cells because when we receive your sample in the lab, this will help us to extract DNA. There will be lots of DNA in the laboratory. And this is very important because if we collect enough DNA, we don't have to go back to you to say, please do another round of saliva collection. Normally it doesn't happen. If you do this, the method that I mentioned to you, there should be enough, more than enough. So this way, compared to the buccal swab means I give you a cotton bud and you just scrape and then put it. Compared to the buccal swab method, the quality of DNA and the quantity of DNA extracted from the saliva sample, both quality and quantity are better. And that's why we use this method.
Okay? I see. So, yeah. So, Dr. Koh, you shared with us the tips that is, before we started collecting it, we were supposed to use our tongue and rub against our inner cheek. Is that right?
Yep.
So what about if we rub it also around the gums area? Does that affect anything? Because as I know, it will.
Even the gum, but generally, cells from the cheek easier to come down.
I see.
Before you do collect your cell, we will give you instruction, and the instruction ask you to rinse your mouth, especially after you have taken your meal or drink some coffee. Make sure you rinse away some food debris. We don't need beef or any chicken meat left behind there. And then when you test them, it's not your DNA, become a chicken DNA. Joke. So just remove clear. So you get it.
So it would be best if we maybe make a 30-minute gap, right?
Yes.
Before and
Don't
after.
worry, the instructions are, when you receive the saliva collector, there's a sheet of instructions, very clear. You just follow step 1, step 2, step 3. No problem.
Okay, good. So that would be also a very good way because, as you say, it's not invasive, it's not painful, and saliva is easily available. So it's also, in that way, can I say that it's also very suitable for even children, probably as young as 2-3 years old, when they're able to speak. Yeah.
The only I would say precaution you really have to take care of is make sure when you collect, because the cap comes out, you remove the cap from the collector. You make sure you don't knock it and topple. That would be a big disaster. All the liquid will come out. So make sure you put something that holds it while you rinse your mouth, and don't open it until you're about to use it. Then
I see.
That is the only part you have to be careful. There's a panel there for you to spit into it.
Okay, all right. So let's move on to another question. That was a very good sharing because you share us the tips on how to get better saliva collection. All right, so this is the third question now. How assured am I that the stability of the saliva is not impacted or affected before it's being tested? Because as we know, after we collected it, it doesn't reach the lab immediately. So there is this concern that how is it kept stable?
This is a good question. People worry about that. But rest assured, everyone, let me assure you that we use a globally well-tested saliva collector. This particular brand and collector is very well used by many companies, by researchers, well-tested. The saliva collector comes, when you receive it as a tube, the cap, inside the tube there will be 2 milliliters of liquid. The liquid contains what we call lysis buffer. Lysis means it will break open the cells. Lysis buffer. And the buffer contains a stabilizer. There are some chemicals there to stabilize the contents of the cells like DNA. So when the saliva sample is when you add the saliva sample into the solution, you mix it. When the saliva sample is mixed with the buffer, the cells inside the saliva, they are lyse. That means they are broken open, releasing DNA into the solution. And upon contact with the solution, the stabilizer will stabilize the DNA, maintains the stability of DNA. So the buffer ensures that the collected saliva sample can be stably stored. In fact, once you get this tube from you, we can store it for 5 years, easily 5 years, at room temperature and in the dark. That means no exposure to sunlight. So that is how stable the DNA in the solution. Moreover, in practice, once the saliva arrives at Gene Express Laboratory, our scientists will start extracting the saliva DNA. That means we work on your sample almost immediately. And we extract DNA and then performing a number of precise biochemical processes and reactions to accurately determine the gene variants in your DNA. That is the end result is we want to determine the gene variants. Okay, so this is like this is your DNA. So simple one, right? DNA is double-stranded like this. So in your DNA, 1 strand, 2 strand, these are the bases. We have to determine. So we have to determine what is this? Is it an A? Is it a G or a C? So that's why we want to determine what it is. Some are different. So the variance means are the varieties, the variation there. Okay. So this is your DNA. This DNA can be twisted like this into a double-stranded. Okay. So we go through the process and determine the gene variants in the DNA sample. So all experimental work is done at GE Laboratory. Our lab is in Subang Jaya. And once we get the results, only the gene variant profile results will be sent digitally to England for further analysis and interpretation by our experienced partner company. So don't worry, everything is taken care of. Yeah.
Okay, so to summarize, we don't have to worry about it because the kit that we have, it's already come with a stabilizer, which will keep our DNA sample very stable, even up to 5 years if it's stored properly, right? And doctor, you shared that if it's at room temperature in the dark, then it's supposed to be safe. So I think it's also good that, everyone here, remember that after you collect your saliva, don't expose it under the sun. Quickly keep it in a box or, put it in the delivery bag where it's opaque, it's not transparent. I guess it would help, right, to keep it more stable.
But for short while, don't worry. At home, you after collecting, after the short exposure is okay. Don't have inside a box or switch off all the lights. No, you don't have. It's okay. You just put it hidden there and then put inside you will receive the courier bag to courier back. So during that period, it's okay. Frankly, no.
And then another very important point is that the analysis will be done in the GE lab, which is locally. So there's no concern where the saliva is being sent over to the UK. It was the data that we get from GE lab that is being sent over for further interpretation, right? Yeah. Okay, so that
we determine that, and at the same time, we are telling you, we are assuring you, your sample, because your sample you sent to us, 2 ml liquid there, you add in 2 ml saliva, total 4 ml, mix. So when we receive it, there'll be 4 ml. We will only use 2 ml, half that. So the remaining 2 ml, we will store in our storeroom for 5 years.
But in case a repeated test is required, is it?
Or if you want to do other tests later on.
Okay. Additional
5
tests.
years, there'll be more tests. Because I'm moving advanced. I'm moving very fast. So there will be more tests that can be done. And if you want it, we have your sample already.
Yeah, that would make things much easier.
Yeah, very convenient.
Great. Okay. So let's look at the next question. This is also a very common question, I think, because people always wonder what is the difference between a DNA test and a blood test. And because they know that blood test is a regular one, but DNA only once in a lifetime, but how is that possible and why is that so? Dr. Koh, maybe you can explain to them.
Okay, good. Good question. Yeah. Well, I mean, it is a very actually, it is quite a complicated science. The term DNA profiling is a very general term. Okay, it is a type of DNA test. You will hear people talk about DNA test, DNA profiling. Okay, you know, but to the scientists like us, we have a lot more. You know, we have DNA fingerprinting, we have DNA profiling, we have DNA typing. You know, each one actually has different meaning. But at this stage, you can take it profiling here. It is one type of DNA test. So in our case, it means the identification of gene. When we talk about gene, it means DNA. Gene means, or this is DNA. Here, this is like one gene here. We talk about gene or DNA variant profile. Variant means different types. In other words, at this point, for example, at this point here, in one DNA, it may be a red one here, but in somebody else, it may be a green one here. It can be DNA has only 4 letters. The language of life, there are only 4. A, C, G, T. So here can be A. Another person may be G. Or another DNA may be T. So that's how we determine the variant. That is the purpose of this DNA test, to determine the variant, but has been accurately done, precisely and accurately identified. So from the identified gene variant profile, the profile means a collection of them. Like we determine about 8, can be 1,000 or 800, 700, the profile. We can then assess, because the variant profile is telling us a story. Yeah, each one has meaning. So we can assess the physical and personal characteristics associated with the gene variants. So, you know, this is the level of science we can do now. This is the 21st century method. We only started at the beginning of this century, of personal precision healthcare analysis. So you hear about people talk about precision medicine. That is what it means. Personal precision health, in this case, healthcare analysis. Everybody is born with a unique genetic makeup. Okay, everyone has DNA is a blueprint, unique pattern. Hence, the physical and mental health status, as well as other characteristics and behaviors of each person, they are different. We talk about personal characteristics and behavior, they are different because of the genes you have. So usually our unique genes will not change throughout our lives. You are born with this set, they remain the same throughout our life. So that is DNA profiling. We test. You need to do once, you know already what you have. On the other hand, you talk about blood tests. Right? All of us have done blood tests. Blood tests, when you go for, you want to apply for a job, you want to apply for a scholarship, they do a blood test. The blood test, what about that? Blood tests do not examine our gene variant profile. It doesn't tell our genes specifically, but it can only detect our present physical condition. At that moment, when you go for the blood test, the test about at that moment, what is your physical condition? To some degree. Because from our blood sample, when you draw a sample, then they send to the lab for analysis. They can detect and determine certain biological, like protein, things like that, biological and chemical markers, like sodium, potassium, and all this. So these are the markers, the constituents there, associated with our current health and some common diseases. So from there, you know your health, how healthy you are, you know, and maybe associate some diseases, whether diabetic, high blood pressure, or cholesterol, whether your cholesterol is high or not, whether your sugar level is high, things like that. Will tell you. Blood tests will tell you all this physical condition. For that moment, the blood test that you do, let's say today, the results may be different from what you did last year, and may be different from next year when you do another blood test, the results may be different because it depends on your condition, on your what is inside your blood, what kind of food you have taken, and so on and so forth. Okay, it's different from DNA. DNA test remains the same. So blood test results do not indicate a person's risk level. It doesn't tell you the risk level to certain traits or characters, such as responses to proteins, to fats, carbohydrates, and calorie restriction, vitamin and mineral deficiencies. They don't tell you specifically what is your risk, low risk, high risk, or normal, or a person's predisposition to a variety of health conditions, such as risk to type 2 diabetes, to obesity, to inflammation, or to infection from cold or flu. They won't tell you whether you belong to the high risk group or low risk group or the normal risk group. So on the other hand, when you do a gene test, the gene variant profile results may tell you, when you get the report will tell you you are low risk, high risk, normal risk on these sort of characters. So it tells us a lot more information. So this kind of information is very helpful. It helps in prevention. You can use that for prevention because you know what is your risk, what is your predisposition. So you should then do the right thing to prevent. So this kind of approach is better than the expensive medical treatment later. If you don't know all these things, eventually you end up with some serious problem. You're going to pay more for your medical bill. Okay, so when you have your personalized reports and recommendations based on your gene variant profile, you are empowered. That means you are enabled, empowered to use the science-based knowledge to optimally modify your lifestyle, your eating habits, and improve your health with confidence. In other words, you have a chance to mitigate it, to improve that. It is not guessing, not by guesswork, but based on what you know. In other words, you know the secret in your own gene, then you act upon that. So that is quite a lot of difference between DNA profiling and blood tests. Okay.
So as you have explained, Dr. Koh, so the blood test is actually to look at the current situation, whether we have eaten good enough, and that will, or the environment or stress that will reflect in the result, right? So normally when we go for a blood test and we found out that, probably my blood pressure or my blood sugar is already borderline. That's when it's too late. But through this gene test, maybe we can find out earlier in the stage whereby our foundation risk, which is the genetic risk, from there we will know, okay, maybe I was with a higher or increased risk of diabetes, or higher or increased risk with high blood pressure. Then from there, we know what to do about it, and that helps us to further lower the risk. Can I also put it in that way?
Yes, because based on the science that we know, built up from the last 30 or 40 years, so now we know if you have this particular combination or this type of gene variants like A or G or C or like this, you have this combination, you have this kind of risk. It gives on the risk based on what the scientists have studied based on sometimes 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 people. Then they have an idea. Okay, the result of course can never be sure. It doesn't mean that you have this, you must become like that. It means that you have a tendency, you have the risk, you have the predisposition. So there's still time for you to change it, to mitigate it. You cannot change your gene. You cannot change your gene, but you can change the effect. These are the effect of it. Okay, so that's where the value of knowing your genes. Yeah.
So it's actually helped us to look into one more perspective, right? When it comes to risk factor, when a lot of time we tend to overlook it because we do not know there's such tests that can help us to get more insights in that. Okay, so let's look at the next one. Question 5. Is it better to have more reports tested with less SNPs, or to have less reports tested with more SNPs? So, doctor, this is a very, I guess it's a very technical question because we don't know what is SNP. So maybe you can explain to us, and then probably we'll have a better insight in that.
I mean, yeah, thanks for the question. I mean, this kind of question, I believe people ask this sort of questions when they, it's natural. When somebody wants to go for a DNA test, they may Google for it, they may go and test, and then you see there are different companies. Actually, there are different companies providing this sort of service. Each company has, actually, they concentrate on certain things. It's very difficult to compare, unless you know what to do to compare. What I can tell you is that different companies have different emphasis. That's why you can see some people say, I have so many markers have this, but you need to look carefully what it means, all right? Because just like our company, our emphasis, we concentrate on, we don't concentrate on, for example, disease gene, cancer gene, or certain gene. We don't do that, because that is actually another issue. We concentrate on health, on lifestyle gene, on nutrition gene. That's why we concentrate on 1,000 genes, as I mentioned earlier. These are genes related to our nutrition, health, general health, healthcare. So that's our emphasis. Okay. So now we talk about SNP. SNP sounds like S-N-I-P when you hear it. If you look at the word, it's SNP. Okay, that is pronounced as SNP stands for, it's an easy way to say, it stands for single nucleotide polymorphism. Single means one. Nucleotide. This one, in DNA, each of this one is actually a nucleotide or a base. So single nucleotide, you look at one. Polymorphism means different forms. Poly means many. Morphism is form, different forms. So what it means is that it can be A, it can be G, it can be C, it can be T. That is what it means, okay? But in science, we call it SNP. So when we talk about SNP, it stands for single nucleotide polymorphisms, and they mean gene variants. It means variation, gene variants, okay? So that's why we talk about gene variants. Now, the vast majority of human appearance traits, the traits that you see, my hair black color, and now my hair turned white, and skin and things like that. Where it's dark skin, white skin, and eyes are green or blue or black. That is what they call appearance, visible traits, and some of the other physical traits also, your height, your muscle, and so on, and also some invisible one like mental health status. All these traits, they are all determined by genes, but not by one gene. It's not by one trait, eye color, one gene. It's actually much more complicated. So normally they are not determined by single genes, but by the interaction of various sets of genes. There are a number of genes in our body, and they all each contribute a little bit, and you end up. So it's quite complex situation. Therefore, if high quality to analyze one trait, if we use many or more high quality scientific references, if we use them to analyze various gene variants, one particular gene like this, they may have different variants. It can be, in this one can be A, another person can be C, another can be maybe G. So each one we need to understand why. So you have to look at the papers. People do research. They say, okay, based on the people, 1,000 people, 2,000 people, they study, A will be have this kind of character. If they have G, will have this kind of character. See? That's why we need to analyze them when you study them. The more papers we have, the high quality, the better, more accurate it is. So that's why to analyze the various gene patterns, the results of the analysis will be more accurate, right? So that's why our experts, for example, when you look at we know that there are 8 important genes that influence our immune function. There are 8 important genes. So when we look at the variants in the 8 important genes, our experts have to study more than 30 highly qualified, high quality scientific references to look at them. Okay, so as I mentioned before, one variant at least we would have 5 papers there. Okay, so your 8 will be at least 40, but sometimes they overlap. So you have about 30 to 40 papers to look at them, to do analysis. Then it becomes accurate. So some companies, I mean, they try not to put them up. So when you see some reports for certain trade, some people did 2 different companies, and you see the results are quite different. Then they say, why? It doesn't make sense. So my answer to that is that you have to look at how many papers, how do they analyze? Do they analyze, they use a lot of papers, good papers to analyze them? Or when they analyze, do they analyze only 1 or 2 genes? Or they analyze a few genes at one time? Okay, this is what we call using big data analysis. Some company may not use a lot of big data analysis. So the quality of analysis or the conclusion will be different from another company that uses better approach. So sometimes it's very difficult to compare. It's not like comparing an orange and an orange and an apple, you know. Okay? But in our case, we assure you, the first step, the gene variant will be accurately determined in our lab because we have ISO to assure you. That means it's the world standard. And once it's accurately determined, we will send to our experienced lab, they will analyze, and then they will send you on the mobile app. So good quality, we assure you. Right?
Okay. So if I put it in a more layman way, if we use more SNP, it means that we gather more information. Less likely we miss out certain important information. Can we say so? The more SNP, we are more complete. With more complete information we can gather to give a conclusion.
Yeah.
Okay.
You must look at the specialization of the company. In our case, we specialize in this area. Right?
Health and wellness.
Don't go and compare us with those companies that did for cancer gene, because we don't have the genes for you. That one is medical, diagnostic. Ours is non-diagnostic.
Okay, good. That's also a very common question. Thanks for clarifying that. So let's look at the next one. Question 6. What are the advantages of a DNA profiling? Which means, in another way, why do we need that? What is so good about it?
Okay. Yeah. As I mentioned just now, each of us born with a set of genes, and normally our unique genes will not change throughout our lives. Okay, if you live normal, it's okay as long as you don't go and stay near to a nuclear station, you know, with all the radiation coming out all the time, then too bad, like your DNA will be will be excited and changes, you know, mutation, or you know. So as long as you do a normal environment, then it's fine. Normally the DNA won't change. Therefore, DNA testing or gene variant profile testing is suitable for different age groups. Yeah. This advantage is that DNA profiling can be done for all age groups, whether you are baby, infants, adolescents, adults, or elderly. At all stages of the life, you can do it. You can test your DNA. A person's gene variant profile, once determined, will not change over time. You do it once, you know it. You know? So that's your information. Furthermore, whether you aim to achieve your body's full potential, you are born with your genetic, so nature and nurture, you are born with certain genes. So you have certain potential. You want to achieve your body's full potential, or to effectively mitigate the nutrient deficiencies in your body. For example, you know that your body, your genes, you have these certain deficiencies for minerals or vitamins. You can mitigate it. So if you want to effectively mitigate these kind of deficiencies, or to perform physical exercises that suits you best based on your genetic makeup, your blueprint say that you are, for example, you have this kind of muscle, you should be a good runner, a short, maybe a long distance runner, or you are a short distance runner. Your lungs, you have a better oxygen capacity, you can do this sort of thing. So if you want to do all these things based on this, the earlier you unlock the secret of your gene variant profile by the TrueU DNA testing, the earlier you can take advantage of the personalized reports and recommendations that will be presented to you. So in other words, the earlier you do it, the better it is. Why would you wait until you are like me, that old, then too late, your potential. Whereas if you are young, you know it, you know what you have in your gene, you can then do the proper thing. You can do all these things. So my advice is, the earlier you do the profiling test, the better. That means you know your own secret, your genes.
So it's like it helps us to be more proactive rather than passively waiting something to happen and then we look for solution, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't know what's in your gene, then you ask doctor. The doctor also won't know what your gene. They will just
yes.
So it's all hitting the dark. That's what I call 21st century dark. Now there's a new, in other words, like a new torchlight. You need this torchlight to shine to your gene, know what's in your gene. It's already there. And if you don't make use of this torchlight, too bad, right?
True. Okay, so thank you for that. We have come to the last question. So, question 7, Dr. Koh. After doing a DNA test, how can I benefit from its finding? And how does TrueU help to improve my life and achieve my health goals? Can you summarize it or put it in a simple way?
Okay, I mean, in fact, I'll cover that. I mean, okay, that question to come to the final question. So when you purchase, anyone buys a TrueU DNA testing kit, when you buy it, then you will eventually receive a personalized genetic action plan. As I mentioned before, you will get a genetic action plan on your, this will be on your mobile, all right? The results will come in as a mobile. And that is a genetic action plan. And this plan contains exclusive personal healthcare guidelines or recommendations at your fingertips. You just have to do it. Remember, it's for you only. Don't use this information and share with your girlfriend or with your wife or your son or daughter. They have different genes. Don't do that. It's only for you because it's based on your gene. All right, that's why personalized. Now, with this plan, you will be empowered. You're no longer doing it in the dark. You're empowered to make informed decisions in all aspects of your health and well-being, all in your recommendation there, including taking dietary supplements, physical exercise, weight management, lifestyle. So all the recommendation will tell you what kind of lifestyle you take. I mean, things like, for example, based on your gene, you cannot break down caffeine so well. You don't have the enzyme to break it down. So we advise you 1 cup or 2 cups the most. Don't go and drink 4 cups of coffee because your body won't be able to break them down. You cannot sleep at night and end up a lot. But if you have the enzyme to break, you can drink 4 cups. That kind of thing. You drink coffee with confidence, not just guessing, should I drink 1 or 4, that kind of thing. So you can do all these things, informed action, without resorting to guessing or trial and error. The time for guessing and trial already gone already. Now we have precision. So this saves time, money, and effort. So stop doing the wrong thing. All right, just guessing and all this thing. So in conclusion, investing in a TrueU testing kit and your own health is truly a wise and beneficial move. Okay? So let me also, in conclusion, remind you just to remember the following 8 P's. Personalization. So this is a personalization. Precision. There will be proposals. You will receive proposal. There's your genetic action plan, a proposal. And that proposal will contain prediction. They'll be predicting whether you are this risk, high risk, low risk or thing. And also talk about predisposition. What kind of predisposition you are. The risk to diabetes, to obesity, and so on and so forth. And once you know this thing, then you are empowered to do prevention. You can do prevention. And most importantly is participation. Once you get your report, don't just read and just say, ayo, alamak, I die, I got this or what. Or, I got this, I'm very happy, and then forget about it. You must participate. We'll tell you to do this exercise, this lifestyle, you do it. You must participate. Then, finally, you get peace of mind. So the last P is peace of mind. Okay? All right, thank you.
Thank you so much for the sharing, especially for the last 8 Ps. It's very useful, and I've also sent it in the chat in case everybody missed that out. So thank you so much, Dr. Koh. Now I guess we can move on to the Q&A session, and we already received a few questions to cover. And the first question is from President Joanne. Joanne would like to know whether we need to rinse our mouth before collecting the saliva. Is it a must?
Yes, yes. I mean, I mentioned before. I mean, when you receive saliva collector, there's a sheet of paper instruction. They'll tell you you only collect your saliva 30 minutes after you've taken something. You've taken a meal, or you drink a cup of coffee or tea, anything. All right. So, and then meanwhile, you rinse your mouth. Just rinse the mouth with water to clear away all the food debris. We don't want all this one piece of nga choy or in your mouth. Then you're going to analyze the chicken DNA also. You know, anything alive, living things will be DNA, not just our human. So we just want to analyze your DNA. So yeah, please rinse your mouth, and then use your tongue to scrape inside when you collect your thing. Everything is given. Don't worry. No need to memorize. It's all in the instruction sheet.
Okay. So basically, the rinsing is to just make sure that our mouth is cleaner and not added with other stuff. Yeah. All right. So the second question is, Joanne also would like to know how many times can we do in future for one-time saliva collection? I guess it's just for another time, right?
Well, when you send us the thing, then we will extract. Okay, we use the DNA, and also we have 2 ml of the saliva there. So this will, if the method requires, then you have to do one more time. Okay, so it depends whether eventually, because we follow the instruction given by the company Illumina, we follow their instruction because they already tested. This is the optimal method, so we follow them. We don't simply change them. If they say you can do it 1 ml now, we have improved the method 1 ml, then we use 1 ml. Okay?
Okay, good. All right. So another question from Miss Josephine. She would like to know, how do we compare to other DNA tests in the market that can provide 500 detailed results?
As I said, it depends. There are companies. This company may have 500 under it. Eventually, we have 1,000. I don't know. So the science is moving the time. So as I said, you have to look in the detail. Please go through the detail which somebody can tell you. But I would say you make sure that it's done. Whatever company provider you use is fine with me actually. Of course, I hope you will do through you. Make sure, check that, or you ask them, is it done in what kind of lab is it done? Is it done in a certified accredited lab? And the lab must be accredited for the process. I know some providers, I mean, it's not nice for me to say here, but I know. There are some providers say, it is done in an ISO lab. To me, it's rubbish. All right? ISO, there are various kind of ISO lab. So if an ISO lab for you to do bacterial cell, it is no good. Here you're doing human DNA. They are two different things altogether. Like in our case, we'll tell you very clearly. You can go to Standard Malaysia and check very clearly. Our ISO is from saliva DNA. It goes through the process of, and it states there, Illumina, Infinium, HTS assay. That is the assay that we do. Very clear. We don't hide from anyone. So make sure you check they do that. If not, don't waste your money because you need precision. You need, the first test is very important. All the SNPs, all the variants must be tested accurately. Okay? If anything goes wrong, you get wrong message already. Okay? It's no good to you. So first of all, it's done there. There are some companies, they don't do it. They just try to save money because to maintain ISO is actually costly to the company, the equipment and all that. You have to maintain a certain standard. Otherwise, we don't. Our ISO will be removed by Standards Malaysia. Auditors will come and check us. And then the other thing is, what kind of reports are that? Is it general? Some others very general report. It doesn't tell you a lot. I mean, I've heard people say, complain to me, this company very. So you check. So if you're not sure, check with people who have done, check their report, and then you decide. You know, I think it's very difficult for me to tell you whether they are good or they are bad. You know, it won't be professional for me to do that. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, so in short, actually, we shouldn't, when we're looking for a good DNA test, we shouldn't just look at how many DNA result that they actually provide. First thing, we have to look at, what type of lab are they? Do they have the ISO 17025 accreditation? And then we also look into the reports that they provide. Are they all actionable that we can actually improve, rather than just knowing for the fun or just knowing it, but we can't do anything after it. So maybe, yeah, Josephine, I hope that answers your question. And then we have a question from Lawrence. Lawrence would like to know, is there any age group that Dr. Koh, you think that is the most suitable to do this DNA test? Any recommendation?
As I mentioned before, you can do it at any stage of your life. But our advice is, since you're going to get value, in order to tap the value of it as early as possible, I mean, you don't have to do a baby. I mean, baby is too young, maybe. Maybe when if you want to know, if as a parent, for example, you want to tap the full potential, you want to know what your kid, what kind of genes they have, you can start planning for their activities, then yeah, maybe 8 years old, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, And the younger you have it, you do it, you can then do the appropriate steps, the various actions that you can take. So if you know that this person born with a good set of power muscle, this muscle can the person, the report will tell you whether you belong to the group that you need only, for example, between one exercise and another exercise, you need only a short time recovery. So you have that advantage. Whereas another person may belong to a longer time. You take a longer time to recover. It's part in the gene, the physiology. So maybe if you can recover very fast, maybe you play badminton or squash, very intensive one. You need to recover very quickly. All right. Otherwise, you can plan for other games, other things. That kind of information. So if possible, start it early, rather than wait until you're 80 years old, 90 years old, or 100 years old, then you do a DNA test. All right. I mean, you have information, but you don't have the energy and things to do it. Okay.
Yeah, it's always the earlier you know, the better, because you can take earlier action. All right. So next question is from Rakesh. Rakesh would like to know, will there be follow up for looking whether the desired result is achieved after action plan is told? I guess we can look at two ways. Either we achieve the desired result as in lowering the risk or improving the performance. Yeah.
Generally, yeah, I think if you follow the recommendation, do it properly, generally within a short period, you should be able to feel the difference. Because if you do the exercise, you do the certain lifestyle, especially like smoking and drinking. Smoking, if you say, tell you that just stop smoking. I mean that is a very valid one, because your smoking is like poisoning yourself all the time with all the smokes chemicals, right? Yeah, I believe I've seen people who said that we have got report. Let's say in UK, people have done certain things like that. They say the report from there they can check. They say luckily I've gone through it because they check on their eyesight. Then they ask they show the report to the doctors. They actually can repair their retina even before the problem starts. And some people can do that to improve their sleep pattern, for example. If you know you are a morning person or you are a late night person, okay? So you can report like that. So you can adjust your lifestyle. Maybe you're practicing the wrong lifestyle at the moment. You're forcing yourself to wake up, to stay awake at night when you are obviously a morning person. You should be sleeping earlier and wake up in the morning where your mind is better. But if you are an owl, night person, okay, you work at night. You don't wake up in the morning. You hear people say, oh, great, people wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and do their work. But if you are an owl, you wake up at 5 in the morning, your mind is still clocked. Your working efficiency is very low. So my advice is don't do that, okay? So, that kind of thing. You get this sort of information, very, very helpful information.
Doctor, what I was asking is, suppose you recommend one plan for my So can I come back and ask you that you told me not to take the wheat, not to take the gluten, but still I am the same? Then you can give me something else other than taking the other food.
Sorry, I can't.
Yeah, Mr. Rakesh, your line is a little bit choppy. We can't really hear you very well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Maybe you can type in the chat.
Okay.
It's really choppy and very
Okay.
unclear. All right, thank you. Okay, while Mr. Rakesh is typing, we can look at another question by Mr. Lawrence. I guess Dr. Koh kind of answered that. What type or group of people that will be benefit most by doing this DNA profiling? I guess everybody.
Everybody.
Yeah.
That's why this test. You see, this whole thing. This process now is called democratizing. Democratize it. Democratize means make it available to everybody. Approach used to be 10 years ago, 15 years ago, only the very rich can do that. This approach, I tell you, if it happened, let's say, a few thousand years ago, all the emperors would be very happy. You know, in China, the emperors, every year, all the emperors want to live long life. So every year they send people out and go and find all this magic potion and all these things. Now you can tell the emperor, no need to send people. We test your DNA, we do it for you, we check for you. You do the right thing. You can live quite healthily. So this kind of information is actually very valuable. You open up a new dimension, which 20 years ago you can only imagine, you hope for, but now it's reality. And not only that, it's actually quite cheap, relatively cheap. Cheaper than you send your car. If you own a Mercedes, you send your Mercedes for your annual maintenance. I tell you, you pay a lot more than doing a test to find out your own engine, your own DNA. Really. And if you're on the stingy on that, I have nothing to say. You know, you can get so much information out of that. And that's why it's called democratize it. Make it, in fact, now it's become cheaper and cheaper. That's why there are more companies providing that. It's up to you to take advantage of it. Okay?
So we only have 1 minute left, so maybe we go to the very last question. Is there any best time to collect the saliva? For example, in the morning? No.
Doesn't matter. We don't want a hormone or anything. Because we want your DNA, we're not interested in what's inside. We don't want to collect your other things in your saliva. I mean, of course, your saliva got other things. A lot of bacteria actually, but don't worry. Because the bacterial DNA will not interfere with the human DNA that we test.
Okay, yep. So that's the point. Because we are only looking at DNA sample, not related to hormone. It doesn't affect any time anyway.
If you do blood tests, maybe sometimes the hormones will.
Okay, all right. So it's actually 9 p.m. now. So sorry if we have more questions to come in. But don't worry, we still have another session. I mean, another round. Maybe not today, but we can always talk to Dr. Koh again. So once again, thank you so much, Dr. Koh, for your time. You spent your night with us here. We've gained so much knowledge about this DNA profiling test and some tips on how to make sure that, you know, we do it the right way to ensure the quality of our test. And also, thank you so much to everyone who have attended our session today. And remember, heart starts by knowing your genes. Discover your true self through you. Good night, everyone. I'll see you again. Thank you, Dr. Koh.
Thank you, Shalene, and thank you all the participants. I appreciate your participation.
Thank you again, Dr. Koh.
Everybody take care.
All right. Good night. Enjoy.